Awesome. Well, Galex, can you talk about some of the works you've done recently with OpenClaw and an implementation for a feature you're working on, and what you've learned and
Yeah.
problems you've run into?
Yeah. So we're working on this feature that we wanted to integrate with Slack, and we realized that it's very natural if we were to use OpenClaw to actually do that integration, because OpenClaw naturally has all of these different channels that they integrate agentic workflows with.
Mm-hmm.
So we started to set out figuring out how to actually set up a claw, how to get our software on there, how to then build a skill that would utilize our feature in Claw. And so that was probably the biggest learning for us, was actually how to build that skill.
So you said you had to write a Claw skill, and you used Claude to write the skill.
That's right.
Did you consider did you consider ChatGPT, for example, for writing the Claw skill? And what about writing the Claw skill was different from all the many skills you've written for Claude, for example?
Yeah, I actually started using Claude Chat to help
Okay.
and investigate, whether how to go even about building out the skill. And it was different because it's a different environment, right? It's different from Claude itself, and I didn't understand, or I didn't know how do I define things like, what are the prerequisites? How do you make sure that the software you need is running on your Claw? How do you make sure to set it up appropriately? And these were things that I went back and forth with Claude, and it helped brainstorm what are the right ways to go about doing this. And when we further got into actually developing it, Claude itself was a really great resource, because I could constantly ask it, hey, what are other people who are building skills? How do they go about solving these problems? How do they make sure that the appropriate tools or credentials are available? And one of the tricks was to ask it in April 2026, what is the right way to do this? What are people doing? And so it came up with very specific recommendations. Oh, you should make sure to use these declarations in the skill, which is very Claw specific, OpenClaw specific. Use these declarations to say you need these skills, you need these credentials, and this back and forth was very productive. What was interesting though was later on when I went to Claw Hub to take a look at, that's the place where you publish your skills. I noticed that they do a really great service, which is they scan, they do a security scan of the published skills, because it's kind of like the Wild West right now, right? And there's all these skills that are out there, and they do a really good job of scanning through and seeing, does it look like this is an abusive skill? Does it look like it's actually a malicious skill, trying to exfiltrate information? And so that once I realized that was the case, we needed to actually figure out, okay, how do we prepare for these scans, right? And again, Claude was really helpful in asking it, how to figure out, how do I actually know if I'm going to get flagged for this scan? And in this particular case, I was able to actually point Claude to, hey, take a look at the Claw Hub code. Tell me what they're doing. And it came up with a way to actually codify the scans. It helped scan our own skills. It found a whole bunch of things that it flagged. So it said that, hey, these will get flagged, and it helped me actually correct all of those errors.
I'm just curious. So that's a really good hack. But I'm just curious. Do you think the skill ended up being more secure or of a better quality, or did it just prepare better to pass the exam? I'm curious how effective the Claw Hub is at scanning.
That's a really good question. I think yes, no, it actually is better, because they look for various things that look malicious, right? Like, for example, if it looks like you're trying to install your tool in an opaque way that is not clear, that could actually be installing some malware, they kind of flag some of those patterns. And so it was important for us to think about, how do we present, in our case, because we wanted to make sure that the Ox CLI was being installed on the OpenClaw instance. What is the safe way to show that we're installing something that is legit and not potentially malicious, and being opaque about it? So these kinds of things are helpful. And then the other thing is that it will also look at some of the instructions in the actual skill itself. And if it looks like you're doing something, again, malicious, if it looks like you're trying to exfiltrate information. And in our case, I wanted to have an option where you could get at the latest version of the Ox CLI. And so you could compile some code, and I just wanted to make sure, okay, if that's in the skill, we do it in a way that's transparent and it doesn't look malicious, even though we're actually executing code.
I see.
Yeah.
So far, I have heard a couple of takeaways. One is that you use Claude to help you define the Claw skill. The other one is that you ask Claude to give you best practices or instructions as of April 2026, because of course everything changes so fast. And then also you ask Claude to help you prepare for the scans of Claw Hub and ensure that the skill would present well when reviewed by
Yeah.
Claw Hub.
As a matter of fact, not only did it help me prepare for the scan, like on a surface area level, but we ended up adding another skill within our own code base.
Oh, nice.
that is an ongoing linter. So it actually codified some of the rules that it read in Claw Hub, turned that into a skill for constantly checking the skill that we're building.
And I'm sure the rules in Claw Hub are also constantly changing themselves, so that skill needs to be refreshed. So curious, if you were to write your next Claw skill now, how would you go about it differently?
That's a good question. I think it was good to ask it, like, what are the best practices from April 2026? Going forward, I would ask it to look at various other repos. I think one of the things I would do differently would be to ask Claude, to search for what are the existing repos that are out there that are related to this space, update its instructions on how to go about and reviewing and building out a new skill. So kind of refining its own learning by constantly reviewing what are the current available repos that are out there.
And what are the skills that are performing well, right?
Performing well, exactly. Yeah. So to go look at the Claw Hub itself, take a look at the skills that are popular, understand how they're structured. So looking by example, I think would be one additional change.
Curious if there are any things that stand out for you between writing a Claw skill and a Claude skill. Were there any patterns that are worth flagging?
Yeah, I definitely think that a Claude skill, you tend to actually assume that there's quite a bit of tooling already, and you're kind of working within the confines of a developer's toolkit developer who is using Claude code. You can tell the skill, here are some things to check for, and then handle errors if those things aren't there, right? So if you don't have like the GitHub CLI, you can just tell the user, you should install the GitHub CLI. With OpenClaw, because it's more hands-off, right? That's the MO, is that you want more automation. You don't want, the human is not necessarily in the loop of every time the skill is running. You do have to think about these error conditions. You have to think about the preconditions of which your skill is being built around. And so you have to think more about the robustness of the skill. And so I think that is actually some learnings and some patterns, I think, that as a group that we'll all begin to learn. Right?
Curious if token usage was a consideration as you were writing the Claw skill.
Yeah, that's I'm glad that you brought that up. It definitely was and is still a consideration. We were very intentional at creating a different API key for the OpenClaw so that we could monitor the skill, encap the usage on a daily basis. And there were a couple of things that we also learned. Like, one was to actually kind of tell the skill when it should actually output things and when it should actually read the output, because all of those use tokens. And so if part of the skill doesn't require output into the Slack channel, it doesn't make sense for it to consume all those tokens. So it was also important to think about the structure of the skill and how many tokens the commands and everything would generate. And so there is some optimization. We're still watching. I'm still watching the token usage to make sure and learn, are we efficient or not? So definitely a concern.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else at this point?
I'm excited to show everybody eventually the features that we've been building that we're using the OpenClaw for.
Yeah, hopefully very soon in the upcoming days.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Galex.
Great. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.